morning everyone, Reginald Scott here. How are you all doing today? I hope you're all doing really well, and as always folks, if you do me a massive favour, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell and share with a friend. Alright, let's get off this road. So today's video is all about why a carbon bike, if you are considering to buy yourself a new bike, is absolutely the worst choice in any situation, in my opinion. Okay, so today I'm going to go through all the different bikes that you could potentially want to buy, right, as a everyday rider, and I'm going to go through each one and explain what I think the best material for that job is. And it's not carbon. I'm going to explain also why it's not carbon, which is the best set of steps to go down. I guess these ones. 25mm tyres, TPU tubes, steel frame. I'm going to start with commuter, because there's a lot of people out there who commute by bike, and I think that's a wonderful thing to do. Well done everybody if you commute to work by bike. I think that's great. What sort of bike is the best bike to commute with? Well, it's certainly not a carbon fibre bike, that's for sure, okay? Now, you may be using a carbon fibre bike, and that's okay, but it's not what I would choose to ride to work on. Over here, maybe? Okay. I would not choose a carbon bike to go to work on, simply because, number one, carbon bikes are very expensive. Number two, they're fragile, so they're susceptible to getting damaged if you slip on a patch of diesel or a wet manhole cover, or like my city of Nottingham, my old city of Nottingham, we had tram tracks everywhere, and the moment those things got wet, they became like ice, and there was, as soon as your front tyre hit them, it would just slide out. It was horrible. Absolutely hated the tram in Nottingham. Thought it was the worst investment Nottingham City Council made. Nottingham City Council being completely broke, by the way, but that's because of their foolishness. Anyway, I would say, yeah, that's not a good thing, because even if you have a minor accident on a carbon frame, there's a good chance you're going to do some serious damage. You know, when you chain it up at work, not only do you have to worry about the frame getting knocked, because other people chaining their bikes up might not be as nice as you, and they might like knock your frame around a bit and end up damaging it. And on top of that, it's going to be something that people really want to steal. You know, if they see a bunch of bikes, you know, lined up, and let's assume for a moment that all the locks on each bike are the same, the criminal is obviously going to target the bike with the nicest frame and componentry, right? If it looks like carbon fibre, it's probably worth some money. Your average carbon bike is probably going to set you back, what, 4 grand? 3-4 grand at least. So yeah, to me it just doesn't make sense. The other thing, of course, as well, is that carbon's not particularly comfortable. Okay, it's more comfortable than aluminium, probably, in general. I mean, I'm generalising here. It is a bit more comfortable than aluminium, but it's not, you know, it's not massively plush, is it? It's not like a nice steel bike or a nice tie bike, you know, it's buttery smooth. So your commute to work's not going to be amazingly pleasant. And of course, sometimes, you know, I used to commute to work with a big heavy backpack on, because that's how I carried all my university books or my college books. It's how I carried all my clothes and my shoes and stuff for my job. So, you know, I used to carry quite a lot of weight on my back. And, okay, I was light. I was in the sort of the sub 70 kilo area back then. Now I'm a bit over 70 kilos, unfortunately. Oh dear. Somebody who was a bit indecisive there. Now they're making it difficult for everybody else. Yeah, 70 kilos. Plus, I'm guessing most people my age are going to be 70 plus, 80 kilos, or maybe even more. You might be 90, you know. Then stick another sort of 12 kilos on your back, and that's a lot of weight bearing down on a carbon frame. It's not really the kind of weight that those frames were designed for. They do have quite low weight limits, and it means as well, you know, pannier racks are a little bit different or difficult on carbon. With metal frame bikes, you can not only have bikes with frame lugs on them designed for fitting panniers, but you can also get yourself you know, racks that just clamp directly onto the metal tubes, and that's like on my bike. I've got a commuting / shopping bike, and that's what I've got. I've got a rack that clamps onto my aluminium seat post, and then it clamps onto my steel seat stays. So it's not ideal, but it's certainly better than as if it was carbon fiber, you know. It would more likely be crushed or damaged. So there you go. That is my reasoning. I don't think carbon's a good bike for cycling to work on. The best bike would probably be steel, simply because it's not as expensive as titanium. It has many of those lovely features that we get with tire bikes, you know. Steel is very robust, very strong, very reliable, can take a lot of weight. It's comfortable, you know, it's fun to ride. If you do fall over, oops, it's not the end of the world. And yeah, I think it just makes for a really good commuting bike. I guess the next best option, or on an equal level to that, I would say aluminium, because I'd probably, if I was still commuting, I'd probably be riding this steel bike. But if I didn't have this bike and I was just commuting, I'd go with aluminium because of the price. You know, the price is really cheap, so you could pick up a nice cheap aluminium bike. It's going to be very durable, very robust. Again, you know, not as durable as steel, but pretty good. Better than carbon. It's not going to be the most comfortable bike in the world, but you can, you know, you can do things to it, like in my previous video that I explained. You can pick things that make the bike feel better. And yeah, that would be a great commuting bike. And of course, again, it's cheap, so, you know, if it does get nicked, it's not the worst. Or hopefully, because it's only aluminium, you know, they're not going to pick it. So commuter, my recommendation is steel or aluminium. Those make sense to me. Right, now shopping bike. What sort of bike should you pick for a shopping bike? I would say, I think steel is probably going to be the best shopping bike, isn't it, really? Mostly for the same reasons as why carbon would be a terrible idea for a shopping bike. Nobody in the right mind, and I'm going to say that phrase a lot today, nobody in the right mind would pick a carbon bike to go shopping on. I mean, come on. Number one, again, doesn't hold much weight, susceptible to damage. You know, theft factor, more likely to get stolen, more likely to get broken in a crash or a slight mishap when your bike falls down outside the shop. So commuters, shoppers, steel and aluminium, those are your best choices, I think. I mean, titanium would work amazing for both jobs, and I have been shopping on my tie bike. Yeah, I've done that before, for sure. But the only issue with that is if you live in a country, again, where theft is likely. Here in Brunei, there's virtually no crime. Yeah, you can pick titanium. It could do the job better than the others. It's just the cost. You know, it's similar price to a carbon bike. I hear all the time people saying that they can afford carbon, but they can't afford titanium. You go on the Linsky website and you go on the Lightspeed website, you can pick up like daily rider kind of bikes, you know, endurance bikes and shopping bikes sort of things, for the same price as you can like a mid to low end carbon frame. Yeah, you're talking the same sort of money. So aluminium obviously is considerably cheaper. So you're not in the aluminium price range with titanium, but you're definitely in the carbon price range. If you can afford a brand new carbon bite from the likes of Giant, Trek, Specialized, you know, those kind of big name brands, then you can definitely afford a tie bite. You can even afford a titanium bike from China. Again, I can't recommend this personally because I've never done it, but I have seen YouTubers who have done it and they seem to be very happy. You can buy one from China and you can get it custom built for less money than a new carbon bike. Yeah, so you can have custom geometry, custom specs, custom frame additions, you know, whether you want lugs on it or not, for bags and panniers and things. Yeah, all custom, 100% custom. And you can all get it done for less money than an average carbon bike. It's, you know, it's nuts. So it's definitely, and they also, some of them profess to come with a lifetime warranty. Now, whether that's the lifetime of the bike or the lifetime of the customer, you have to be careful about that, because lifetime warranty does not mean usually for your lifetime.
When suddenly, the animator suffered a fatal heart attack.
It means the lifetime of the bike. So you've got to ask the manufacturer, what do you consider the lifetime of a bicycle? And it might be anywhere from 12 to goodness knows how many years, you know, like 12, 13, 50, I don't know. Depends on the manufacturer, right? So that is an important question you need to ask. Now, what other kind of cyclists are there out there? I'm going to talk about gravel, because gravel is kind of like road. Can I squeeze up this thing? Oh, I think I might be able to. Yeah. Can't be held up by cars, can I? And what I find absolutely extraordinary is the number of people who think, and again I'm going to use that phrase, who in the right mind would think that a carbon gravel bike was a good option. I honestly don't know. Like, what are you thinking? Like, maybe people who don't actually do gravel, maybe people who just ride on really bad road surfaces, and they think, oh, what kind of bike should I buy? I want a road bike, but the roads where I live are terrible. Okay? Maybe that's the thinking, and maybe that's why they picked a gravel bike, and because they wanted a road bike, they want carbon, okay? So they went for a carbon gravel. It's a good thing I'm going to talk about gravel bikes now, actually, because we're about to hit some gravel. So that's good. Okay, let's pick the firmest ground here. This is like a park path, but it's all broken up for some reason. So it's basically become gravel and a bit of grass and a bit of concrete. Right. Yeah, because the risk of crashing is so high on gravel. You know, it's way higher than it is on road and stuff like that, that picking the most fragile frame material to do that job on just strikes me as well a little bit nuts. Like I say, I've come off on my gravel bike at least 5 times, right? You know, crossing rivers, hitting patches of, you know, very loose, deep gravel. The places where I tend to gravel ride as well are not gravel tracks in the strictest sense. They are jungle tracks that were either made by quarrying companies or logging companies, and they're not to a particularly high standard or anything. You know, they're a complete mess, and they're a mixture of all sorts of stuff: sand, gravel, large coarse rocks, dirt, deep mud, all sorts of stuff. So you need a very versatile gravel bike, and steel just works well. I can get 37mm tires in my steel gravel bike, and off I go. Cantilever brakes, rim brakes basically, and it's all good. So yeah, why anyone would pick carbon for that job, I honestly can't understand, because steel and titanium are going to be way more durable and more comfortable, yeah, and it's an aluminium is going to be significantly cheaper and more durable, and they can have a very special place in your heart. So if you love your aluminium bike, no hate. I think aluminium bikes are great. You can hear how bumpy this path is because my voice is bouncing all over the place. This, of course, this bike I'm riding right now, with its 25mm tyres pumped up to 95 psi, and it's extremely rigid construction because it's a steel race bike basically, is not the best bike to be doing this, obviously, but there are much better steel frames that would just eat this up no problem for breakfast. And here's the thing, I don't mind doing this on this frame because there's very little coming through my rear end. There's not that much vibration coming through the back. Majority of the vibrations coming through the bars. If I ease up on the bars slightly like this, it gets way more comfortable. But it's because I'm holding onto the bars because I need to. Because of the carbon fork at the front, it gets a little bit shaky. Whee! You alright? There's a really big step. There's no way I'm hopping up that. I'm sort of feeling confident. Should I try and get down the other side on the bike? Because it's equally a big step down the other side. I could aim for that block of concrete there and try it. Oh yes, I did it. Wonderful. Right, this one doesn't have a lump of concrete, but I'm going to try it anyway. Oh, that's not too bad actually. I got a bit of dirt to soften the blow. Okay, so yeah, what on earth are you thinking? If you're about to buy a gravel bike, right, and you're like, I think I'm going to buy a carbon gravel bike. Honestly, you should book yourself into the doctors because I think you've gone loony.
I'm just off to Hartlepool to buy some exploding trousers.
Come again, sir? Have you gone barking mad?
Yes, George, I have. Cluck, cluck, gibber, gibber, my old man's a mushroom, etc.
If you want a lightweight performance gravel bike, yeah, and what you don't mind spending the big bucks for things like carbon, then buy titanium. It's going to be probably just as light, if not lighter, because titanium can be built stronger with less material. You know, a lot of these, interestingly enough, I've got a few friends who do mountain bike, and a lot of them ride titanium and steel, what do they call that? What's the one without the suspension in the back? Hardtail, that's the word I'm looking for. They ride hardtail gravel bikes for whatever reason, because you know, sorry, not gravel, mountain bikes, for whatever reason, because there's different kinds of mountain bike for different jobs, right? And I'm not a mountain bike person, so I don't know. I hear these expressions like downhill and trail and all this kind of thing, and I've no idea what you're talking about, but these guys tell me that steel is not significantly heavier than a carbon frame because the carbon frames have to be built so solid and so thick to deal with the same kind of impacts and stuff that they end up being not as strong. They end up being heavier and not as strong. So if you go titanium, I bet you could get a Thai gravel frame, especially if you get one custom built, that would be lighter than a carbon one and just as durable, probably more durable. So there you go, that would be my top choice for a gravel bike. If I had the money to spend again, I would be like, yeah, I think I will go titanium. Next best choice I think is steel, a bit cheaper, basically all the same advantages, and apart from the weight maybe, and maybe a bit of rusting over time, but like I say, I ride a steel gravel bike, it's not a problem as long as you look after it, it's fine. And then the last choice would be aluminium, just again for the price. So yeah, what on earth are you thinking? Why would you go for a bloody carbon gravel bike? That makes no sense at all. What else? So we've done shopping, we've done commuting, we've done gravel. Fitness bike, okay? You want to get fit, you want to ride a bike for fitness. That's all you're interested in. You're not interested in racing, you're not interested in going to work on that thing. You just want to ride it at the weekends, you know, do a bit of cardio, maybe go riding with your wife or your friends or your kids. you know, just a wholesome family activity bike, you know, a bike to enjoy life on. I'm going to clump touring into this as well. Come on, a steel touring bike, absolutely perfect, comfortable, smooth, durable, versatile, not too expensive. I mean, it's literally the holy grail of bikes.
Behold, Arthur, this is the Holy Grail.
Perfect, 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 perfect. You know, and again, like I say, the steel bike, if you get a touring bike, if you get a steel touring bike, it can double as everything else. Like, you could go shopping on it, you could go to work on it, you could ride it for pleasure, you could ride it with your friends, you could ride it with the family. They're so versatile, right? Honestly, it would be nuts to just go out and go, you know what? I just want to keep fit. I just want to ride for pleasure. Maybe I put on a bit too much weight this year. I want to drop off some pounds. I'm going to buy a carbon bike. Why would you do that? Number one, not comfortable. Number two, not durable. Number three, why are you trying to make your life easy, right? You're thinking in your head, and I know how these people think because I deal with them as customers. And they think, oh, I'm unfit, you know, I'm fat. I tell you what, I'll buy a carbon bike, that'll make my life easier. If you make your life easier, you're not going to get fit, are you? It's like these people who go, oh, I want to get fit, I'll buy an electric bike. No! Okay, so now, basically, I think we're in the world of performance, okay? So performance riders, people who want to race. And this is the biggest area where I think most people are going to be pretty certain that they just have to have a carbon bike, okay? And unfortunately, it's just not the case. Go, 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 go! Right. Nip up the inside of this one. Is he going left though? That's the question. Hopefully not. Numpty. You numpty. Okay. Whew. I can calm down a bit now. Most people think that if you're doing performance riding, like you're an amateur racer, that you need to get a carbon bike, otherwise you'll be at some massive disadvantage. And I'm afraid that simply isn't the case. From my experience riding as an amateur and watching other amateurs, it really makes no difference. Now, if you have ambitions to become a professional, okay, if you're young enough and you're talented enough to do that, and that is a big if, because you know the kind of people that are that level are 1 in a million, literally. Well, maybe even more, maybe like 1 in 10 million. You know, if you think about the number of professional cyclists there are and the number of people on the planet, there are not many people that get that opportunity. They are literally the elite human specimens. So if you think you might be one of those people, then good for you, you know, if you are. Do you need a carbon bike? Well, the very simple answer is no, because you can do everything that you need to do to prove yourself and to gain sponsorship from someone with a lot of money on an aluminium bike. I'll give you a story, an example. My nephew wanted to get into cycling. I basically put him together a bike on his budget in aluminium. It had aluminium wheels, it had aluminium frame, it had aluminium components, light as I could make them for the price he gave me. And obviously I did him an amazing deal, you know. He didn't pay full price or anything. Oh, 105 group set, yeah, 105 rim brake mechanical. And then we went training together. We were training, sorry for the construction noise. We were training together. Yeah, I mean, I trained him, or trained with him, and gave him all the tips I could, and then we entered our first bike race together. It was a crit race. Yeah, it was quite a long crit race. It was over 90 kilometers, I think it was. His first race. And the Jammy Dodger, he only went and got 3rd place. Amazing performance for his first race. Absolutely brilliant performance for his first race. Everyone was like super impressed with him. I was impressed with him. I hugged him. I was like, you did an amazing job, well done. Anyway, so believe it or not, that night, because he was my nephew and I trained him and I built his bike, that night I was inundated with text messages from people, well, WhatsApp messages, asking me his name and his phone number, because all the local bike clubs, right, in the area wanted to poach him. That was it. They're like, right, this guy, we want him on our team. Done, finished. And do you know what? A lot of those local clubs, they sponsor you. So they sponsor your races. You don't have to pay for your races. They sponsor your food. So already, after one race on an aluminium bike, he had sponsorship. Right, in theory. Unfortunately, he went off to university after that. And he didn't do much riding in Brunei, but he's still riding in the UK, where he's studying now. Anywho, that's my point. My point is, if you are talented, if you are fit, if you're determined, and if you are utterly fearless, you can do anything you need to do on a simple aluminium bike. And when the day comes that you prove yourself, someone will give you a carbon bike for free. There is literally no reason to buy one. So yeah, I like to ride light bikes, and this bike here, my steel bike, is my heaviest road bike anyway, and it weighs 8 kilos. My buddy, who's the same height as me, another guy from the UK who lives here, he rides a Scott Foil. It's a Scott Foil disc, carbon, obviously, aero, and that bike weighs in at 8.5 kilos. And when we race, we usually finish about the same. Okay, sometimes he gets slightly ahead of me in the group, sometimes I get slightly ahead of him, and that's it. That's the big difference. So again, if you're an amateur, what should concern you more if you're spending your own money is not weight or aerodynamics. It's comfort, because you want to enjoy the race, and 2, it's durability and reliability. Because in racing, crashing happens. And I would much rather crash on a steel frame or an aluminium frame than I would on a carbon frame, especially if I bought it with my own money. You would have to be really rich or really crazy to think that a carbon bike is the best choice for an amateur racer. It's just not. Financially, economically, it's just not the best choice. And like I say, again, back to what I'd rather have. I'd rather be way more comfortable on a steel frame bike and slightly heavier and less aero than on an aero bike. Well, actually, no, I'd be lighter on this than an aero bike, especially a disc aero bike nowadays. I'd rather be lighter and more comfortable on this than more aero, less comfortable and heavy on a disc brake aero bike made of carbon. That is for sure, because I think I'm going to perform way better in a sprint or uphill on this bike than I am on an aero bike. And okay, the aero bike might have it over distance at high speed, we're talking 45 kilometers an hour. You know, it has like a 2 or 3 watt advantage over me at 45. But at 45 kilometers an hour, where we're most likely to be is in the group. And in the group, we've got a 30% benefit from shielding by other riders. Yeah, if you're a smart human being, you don't bally well sit in the wind all day, do you? You stay behind other riders. So having a slightly aerodynamic frame, and we are talking very slightly here, really is of no benefit in a race if you're in the group. The only time it would be of any benefit is if you're out on your own completely. And there's very few of us who are going to be out on our own completely from the start gun, right? Most of us are going to be in the group for the majority of the race, especially if we're amateurs. If we're amateurs, that's where we are. We're in the group. Because otherwise we're going to get dropped. Thank you. So where we are now is called Embassy Hill. And it's where all the embassies are. I believe that's the Filipino embassy. Republic of the Philippines. Okay, yeah, Filipino embassy. And bunch of embassies here. We'll see a few today. I'll try and point them out if I've got the energy. Now, like I say, it's only a small difference. You could fit aerodynamic handlebars to your bike, even if it's a steel frame bike like this, and you could fit deep section carbon rims like a lot of the guys on the aero bikes. They're fitting carbon rims, yes, but maybe they've only got 40s or 50s, right? You could go 60 on your steel bike. And we all know that there's a bigger benefit to be gained from the wheels than there is from the frame. So if you have a nice unaerodynamic steel frame, you don't have to worry about gusts of winds coming from the side as much as you do on a fat carbon frame. You know, a big wide flat carbon frame is going to pick the wind up from the side, much worse. And so you could get away with deeper rims and still be quite stable. And I say 16% of your aerodynamic drag is your rims. 80% is your body. So again, if you wear like all aero clothing, you're going to be much better off. And the remaining 4% is everything else. That's like your bars, your stem, your your frame, your forks, your seat post, your saddle, your computer mount, your bar tape, your crank, your derailleurs, everything, your cables if you've got them. So if you divide all those parts up in that remaining 4%, what you end up with is an aero benefit from your frame of about 1%, maybe, if you're lucky, about 2%, right? From just the frame. So again, you're spending a lot of money there to get a very small benefit. Whereas, if you buy an aluminium frame, say for $1,000, yeah, and your budget is $5,000, that means you've got $4,000 to spend on really good next level componentry like Dura Ace or super fast carbon rims. But if you've got a $5,000 budget and $3 or $4 grand of that is spent on just the carbon frame, then you've got nothing left to get decent wheels or decent group set, and that would be daft. Now, I am a big advocate of spending wisely on the frame. I think the frame's the most important thing to buy, but if you're going to spend a lot of money, I would buy titanium, because then you're really at an advantage for both comfort and lightweight. You know, Thai bikes can be made lighter than even aluminium, and they're way more comfortable. So you'd have a huge comfort benefit on a Thai frame, you'd have a huge weight benefit, and the rest of it can be modified with good components. If you took an aero bike from like the 80s, steel frame aero bike from the 80s, you know, that was used in the Tour de France, and you put it up against a modern day aero Trek Madone, you know, SL6 or whatever, I reckon the steel bike would win in a time trial. And that is because even though the frame of the Madone is slightly more aero, the position that the steel time trial bike gets you in is so much more aero, and it saves so many more watts than the Trek, okay? And they've done this test. There was a video done, old steel frame Colnago versus brand new aero Colnago.
This Colnago is 30 years older than this Colnago. But how much of a difference does that really make in the real world?
And in the time trial, the old steel bike won.
and the difference between the two rides, once adjusted, was 6.3 watts, in the Master's favour. I have to say, I was pretty surprised by that result, but Xavier said that 6.3 watts really was within the error margin.
So, I know this for fact, okay, that you will not go faster on an aero bike unless you've got a really, really aero position. So that's the new Chinese embassy that's going to be here one day, I guess. And this one is the embassy of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They're next door neighbours with each other. Okay, now we're going to go back down the hill. Whee! Okay, here's the American embassy down here. Is that a tennis court they've got? I don't know. They've got a helicopter landing pad, I know that much. You can see it on Google Maps. Obviously they would, right? Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? Is that how it goes? That was my rendition. So there you go. Very high security looking embassy and very large as well. So I think that's all I really need to say on that subject, folks. In my opinion, you don't need to buy a carbon bike. It wouldn't be the smartest decision financially, and to be honest with you, I think in all conditions it wouldn't be the smartest move. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Are you getting ready to drop 5k on your new carbon bike, or have you changed your mind? Are you starting to think, hang on a minute, this crazy idiot on the steel bike might be right? You never know. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to go carry on climbing these hills, and whatever you're doing, wherever you're going today on your bicycle, or indeed for the next week until I see you again, do try and stay safe, and I look forward to talking to you again in the next video. Goodbye.